Hello, welcome to Bits in Biology. My name's Liz, and in this video I'm going to talk about some of the games that I played in the month of August 2024. We're going to start with the top 10 games that I played in August, so not necessarily all relevant to the channel. And then we're going to go on to some honorable mentions. I'm going to talk about some games that I checked out from the library, because this is something I recently discovered our library has. I'll talk a little bit about some crowdfunding games, 3 that I backed and a few others that are currently on crowdfunding. I have a little bit of recent board game content to talk about that you can find elsewhere on the internet. And then I'll wrap it up with just a wee bit of channel news. So there are timestamps below in the description if you want to skip around, but let's get started. So in August, I had 109 total plays from 34 different games. Out of those 34 different games, 16 of those were new to me. And in descending order of how much I enjoyed them, we start with Lands of the Mesozoic at the very top, followed by First Rat, Boop, Naturopolis, Ecosystem Savanna, Nimalia. I'm going to say this one wrong, so I have a pronunciation guide, and that is Skoventyr. Skoventyr. So I will talk about that one when I talk about the channel relevant games. Following that, we had Cora Quest, and then it was a whole bunch of button shy games this in August. Food Chain Island, Numbsters, Aqua ROVE, and then we also had Deep Sea Adventure, Mind Up, and then Unsurmountable, and finally Magic Maze. 18 of those 34 different games were relevant for the channel, if you include games with cats. So I'm a little bit on the fence with that, so you have to tell me what you think. 8 of those 18 were new to me in the month of August. If you want to see all of the games that I played in August, you can check out my profile on Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that down in the description. So if we want to compare August to the month prior to that, in July, my board gaming was up quite a bit. So in July, I had just 38 plays of 26 different games. Only 5 of those were new to me. Right, before we get into the top 10 games that I played in the month of August 2024, I just want to remind you that we do have a Discord server. It is free to join. I do have a link in the description. And the reason I started this Discord was in the hopes of creating a community of board gamers who are also interested in science, whether you be scientists or just interested in science, or the link between science and board games, or maybe you're an educator. But in any case, there is space for all of that in the Discord. And we don't always talk about science. Most of the time, we're just talking about what games are on our table. But we certainly do have that in common. So come and join us in the Discord. All right, let's get started with the top 10 games that I played in July. I just want to take a moment to remind you about why I even talk about these top 10 games, because certainly not all of them will be channel relevant, what I call channel relevant, like nature themed or wildlife themed or something like that. And that is in the hopes of helping you understand what types of games I enjoy and maybe a little bit about why I enjoy them, so that it gives you some additional context for my ratings and my reviews. And it might help you discover some new games that you might enjoy. All right, starting, actually, numbers 10 and 9 are both channel relevant games. So we will talk about those when I talk about the channel relevant games. But number 10 is Waypoints, and number 9 is Verdant, both of which have videos up on the channel. At number 8, we have the Grand Carnival. This is a polyomino tile laying game with set collection, has a really cool layering mechanism. I played this 3 times, and I've played the game 8 times in total since we got it. Plays 1 to 4 players in about 45 to 60 minutes. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 2.23, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.5, and my rating of it is an 8.6. In this game, everybody has their own player board, so it's a little bit multiplayer solitaire. There is a central board that you will draft tiles from, but the way that it works is you first need to lay down a layer of tiles that will then allow you to put carnival attractions on them, and these carnival attractions are in the form of polyomino tiles. And a little bit of set collection, because one way to earn points is by by collecting multiple tiles of the same size, for instance. You're also moving your carnival visitors through the carnival, up through the big top, and on the way they're going to earn tickets by visiting your rides. So multiple ways to earn points, which I really love. I love tile laying games, and I really like that double layer mechanism that this one has going on. So that is the Grand Carnival at number 8. At number 7 is one I've talked about before. This is a card game called Parade. I played this only one time in August, but I have played it a total of 26 times, at least since January of 2022. I'm actually not sure when we got this one. I'd have to go back and look. But this is a hand management set collection game with an Alice in Wonderland theme. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.46, an average rating of 7, and my rating of it is an 8.5. And so what you do in this game is everybody starts with, I think it's a hand of 5 cards, and there will be cards laid out on the table, and those make up the parade. And the way that it works is you choose a card to play from your hand to add to the parade. However, any cards in the parade that are that number value or lower or the same color, you will then put into your play area in front of you. And these are the cards that you collect that will then score you points at the end of the game. However, you don't want points at this game. The lowest score is going to win the game. It is a little swingy sometimes in points, so we actually usually play, I can't remember if we play to 100 points or play 3 rounds. I think those end up coming out to about the same thing in this game, but that helps sort of smooth out those point swings. But you will earn points for the cards that you collect. However, for each color of card, like 5 or 6 colors, whoever has the most of that doesn't have to score the face value of the cards. They only have to score 1 point for each card of that color that they have. So that is an incentive to sort of go out on a limb for a color or two and try to see how many you can collect, if you can be the one to collect the most of them. And sometimes that backfires, sometimes it works out. So a bit of push your luck here as well. And that is Parade at number 7. Number 6 is a game that was new to me in August, and that is First Rat. We played this 4 times, all multiplayer for that one. In fact, the Grand Carnival, Parade, and First Rat, I've all only played multiplayer. I'll try and remember to tell you when I've played something solo. So we played that 4 times. Really fun game. It is set collection, bit of racing. You're trying to race your rats. Actually, the premise of this game, I think, is the cutest thing. It is that rats read a comic book that told them that the moon is made of cheese. And so now they are building a rocket ship out of junkyard parts and trying to launch themselves, their ratronauts, up to the moon that is made of cheese. And so that is the premise of the game. And so it's just a really fun theme, but you're moving your rats along the board up to the top, so through a path. And as you move up the board, you're going to collect parts for your rocket ship. There are different tracks on the board that keep track of your points as you're going along. And so as you collect, for instance, parts for specific parts of the rocket ship, you will earn points for that. As you move your way up the light bulb track, you're going to score points for that. Getting your rat actually to the top of the board is going to score you points. And there's different ways to unlock additional rats, and there's certain rules for movement that are quite interesting. And so I was really charmed by this. I've had my eye on it for a long time, and I think this was a deal of the day for game nerds, maybe. It went on sale, basically. I keep my eye out for sales for board games. Anyway, this one plays 1 to 5 players in 30 to 75 minutes. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 2.28, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.6, and my rating of it right now is a 9.2. Now, again, that's after only playing it 4 times, and I've not played it solo yet, but I am actually looking forward to the solo game. I just haven't had time to get it back to the table for solo. We'll have to do that in this next week. We can get it out. I can play a solo game, and then maybe we can play a multiplayer game in the evening. All right, so that was number 6. First Rat, a game that was new to me in August. At number 5 is what is now, I think, considered a classic, and that is Wingspan. So we'll talk about that when I talk about the channel relevant games. At number 4 is a game I have talked about before. It's one of my all-time favorites, and that is 7 Wonders. We only played this once in August. We do get this to the table periodically. Board Game Geek has a total of 11 plays for me for this, but I know for a fact that I've played it way more than that. I only started keeping track of my plays in January of 2022, and we have had Seven Wonders for quite a bit longer than that. So I've probably played it in the ballpark of, okay, this is gonna be a wide range, 20 to 40 times. I don't know, but I still love it. This is a closed drafting game. That's the main mechanism, and I guess set collection, where you have a hand of cards. You choose one that you're gonna play as long as you can pay for it, and then you're going to pass that either to the right or the left depending on which round it is. They call them eras. There's 3 of them, and at the end of the game you tally up your points from the cards that you have in front of you, and highest points is the winner. This plays 2 to 7 players, although I will caveat that with I have heard mixed reviews about the 2-player game. Rado says the 2-player game is awesome. I have heard nobody else who supports that, so I trust that it plays well for Rado and Jen at 2 players. We've not tried it. We do have Seven Wonders duels, so I guess I don't feel a need to try out the 2-player variant for Seven Wonders. It will play up to 7 players. I've only played it up to 4 players, and plays in about 30 minutes. This is a pretty quick game. The weight on Board Game Geek is 2.31. Has an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.9, and my rating of it is a 9.3. Coming in at number 3 is another game that was new to me in August, but also channel relevant, so we'll talk about it then, and that is Lands of the Mesozoic. Number 2 is actually a game that was new to me in July, and in July we only played this once, but we played it another 6 times in the month of August, and that is Caverna, the Cave Farmers. This is a strategy, worker placement, tile placement game from Uwe Rosenberg. Plays 1 to 7 players. The range of time is 30 to 210 minutes. I think it comes out to about 30 minutes a player. The weight on Board Game Geek is a 3.78, and that sounds about right. This is a heavier game. Definitely not one I play with my mom. Has an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.9. My rating of this one is a 9.5. I really enjoyed Caverna, and I have played it both solo and multiplayer, and really enjoyed it both ways. And what you are doing in Caverna is placing your workers on the board to take particular actions where everybody has their own player board, and on that player board you can either develop your caverns and mines, or you can develop your fields, and basically you're chopping down forest to create fields where you can either grow crops or house animals, and I guess you can go heavier in one or the other, or maybe try and strike a balance between them. There's quite a few different strategies you can take in this one, but I just really like the many different ways that you can earn points here. So you can take your strategy in many different directions. And of course, it's an Uwe Rosenberg game, so you have to feed your workers nearly every round, only when there's a harvest, and that does not actually happen every round, but just really fun to balance keeping your animals, developing your dwarves. So you are dwarves. I think I forgot to mention that. You're dwarves, where you are living in the caves and then farming the fields outside of the caves. Anyway, really fun game, and that is Caverna, the Cave Farmers, at number 2. At number 1 is one of my all-time favorite games. It is a channel relevant game, so we'll talk about it then, and that is Ark Nova. So for the honorable mentions, I usually only mention up to 3 games in this section, and these are games that are usually not going to make it into the top 10. They're usually games that fall in the 7 to 8 rating range. These are games that I really enjoy playing. I think they deserve some recognition, but they're just never going to squeak into the top 10 because, I mean, I guess unless I don't play a lot of games, because mostly those are going to be games that are rated 8 and above for me. A lot of times it's limited to 9 and above. But this month, I actually want to talk about 5 honorable mentions. So I'll go quick, don't worry. Let's see, these are in descending order of how much I enjoyed playing them. And so the first one I want to talk about is Unsurmountable. By the way, all 5 of these were new to me in the month of August. So Unsurmountable is a route building card laying game. I should preface this with all these button shy games are these 18 card wallet games. In fact, let me go get one and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I'm back. That was quick for you, a little bit longer for me, and I'm missing one of them, but we'll talk about that when I get there. So these are these games. So this is the first one I want to talk about, is Unsurmountable. And these are these games that fit in these little wallets. They come from Button Shy Games. I think they're not the only ones that make wallet games, but they're the best known for their wallet games. And so they have 18 cards, all of them, this little rule book that they come with. And So they're all relatively straightforward in their rules, but I've had a lot of fun with them. And so this one, Unsurmountable, is from the Scott Alms solo game collection. Unsurmountable, you have cards that form a row where you can either take the last card or you can use an action, an ability from one of the other cards. And I think it's either 4 or 5 in the row that you have choices from. And what you're trying to do is build a route from the base of a mountain to the top. And so you are laying cards in pyramid fashion. I mean, that sounds really easy. It is a lot harder than it's a lot harder than it seems like it should be, but really fun, very puzzly solo game. And so that's Unsurmountable. It plays in about 15 minutes. That sounds about right. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 1.4, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 6.8, and my rating of it is a 7. So a 7 for me is still a great game. It's one that I enjoy playing, pretty much play any time, but it's not up there with, you know, the Ark Novas and the Cavernas and other Seven Wonders and all those games. So, you know, they're usually more simple games, but still good nonetheless. I like the mechanisms in that one. The next honorable mention I want to talk about is Aqua ROVE. So another one of these wallet games. Aqua ROVE, and ROVE stands for Results Oriented Versatile Explorer. So actually I forgot to mention I played Unsurmountable 4 times. I only played Aqua ROVE twice. I'll talk about why in just a minute. This is a hand management and pattern movement game. I actually had to look up that mechanism on Board Game Geek because I wasn't sure what that meant. I mean, intuitively, you can kind of figure out what it means if you've played a game that's described like that. But here's what Board Game Geek says. It says pieces move in a specific pattern relative to the board grid. And that certainly describes Aqua ROVE. And so you have movement cards, a set number of those that you can use to move cards around the grid, and you are trying to fulfill certain patterns basically before you run out of the ability to play cards. You run out of cards to use. This is another solo only game. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.75, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.7. My rating of this is a 7. It's not very often I come in under the Board Game Geek rating. I'm actually usually a little bit above, mostly because I put a lot of thought into purchasing games before I purchase them. They're ones that I am pretty sure I'm going to like. So that's why usually my own ratings are a little higher than the average rating on Board Game Geek, because I fall into those higher ratings that bring that average up. Aqua ROVE was one that I actually backed on Kickstarter not too long ago, and I do really like it. I've only played it twice. I didn't feel I could give it a rating above a 7 based on those 2 plays. It does require quite a bit of table space for only being an 18-card game. I do like the puzzle of it. However, I will say when I play these 18-card wallet games from Button Shy, I mostly want them to be relaxing puzzles. And Aqua ROVE was a real brain burner in having to, I guess, that spatial thinking. If you really like spatial thinking and if you're very good at it, I think this is a great game for you. I still like it. I'm still going to play it, and I'm going to give it some more chances to maybe move up in the ratings. So I'll keep you updated on that. But that was Aqua ROVE, Results Oriented Versatile Explorer. It is an iteration of ROVE, which is, I think, happens on the moon or something. Anyway, happens in space. Not a theme I'm necessarily drawn to. The theme is a bit pasted on this one. I didn't really feel like I was exploring underwater. So there's that. Anyway, the next honorable mention I want to talk about is one I have become fairly obsessed with. And those of you who have played it are probably going, oh, I know what that one is. It's actually the one that is missing from this stack. It comes in a bright pink wallet, and that is Numbsters. I played this 16 times in August. Remember, it was new to me in August. I have played it. Now we're at the end of September when I'm recording this. I should probably talk about why that is. But anyway, I've played it 27 times total now. So this is a hand management game that requires no table. You just basically the way it works is, so it's cards numbered 1 to 18, and there's the 8 And if you are familiar with the punny phrase, 7, 7, 8, 9, like the number 8, chomp, chomp, 8, the 9, right? So the way that it works is you start with a hand of 7 cards, then you shuffle in the 8, so the 7 cards are random. So you have a draw stack, and then what we're trying to do is get cards out of our hand. So on every turn, you'll start the turn by drawing a card into your hand. You have to keep the cards in your hand in the order that they start, right? You're not allowed to rearrange your cards with one exception. So at the start of your turn, you draw a card into your hand. It goes into the front, right? The part closest to you. And then you have a choice. Well, actually, the next thing you do is you can either move one card to anywhere in your hand, or you can swap 2 cards. So you get to do that. And then you have to make a choice. If you have cards on either side of the 8 that are consecutive, like a 2 and a 3, for instance, then we would get 2, 8, 3, right? So then the 3 would get discarded out of your hand, and then you would go on to your next turn. Or whatever cards on top, each one of them have a special ability, and you can instead use that special ability to take advantage of the order of the cards to discard a card out of your hand. If you ever cannot discard a card out of your hand by either the actions on the front card or by consecutive numbers, then you lose the game. You are trying to end the game with just 2 cards in your hand. One of them will be the 8, and the 8, here's the tricky part, the 8 can never be on top. If the 8 is ever on top of all the cards in your hand, you lose. And so to win the game, you have to have just 2 cards in your hand, and the 8 has to be behind the other card. So those are the 2 cards you have in your hand. It's surprisingly hard. But what I love about this game, other than just the fun puzzle of it, is the reason I don't have it in this deck right now is it's actually in my car, I'm pretty sure. Because this is a game that when I go to pick up my son from school, I will take this game with me, and when I'm waiting for him to come out of the building, I will be playing this game in my car because I can have the draw pile on one leg and the discard pile on my other leg, and I'm playing in my hand, and so you really need no space. This would be an easy one to play in, on an airplane, for instance, as well. You do need it. I say it needs no table. You do need some place to put the draw pile and some place to have the discard. Now, I guess you could do that in your back pocket. I hadn't thought about that. So technically you could play this one just standing in line somewhere. Anyway, that's Numbsters. I think I didn't say this plays in 5 to 10 minutes. I'd say once you get used to it, it's about 5 minutes. The weight on Board Game Geek is 1.09, very light game. Average rating on Board Game Geek is a 7.4. My rating of it is a 7.2. I think that's about right for me because it is a very simple game. But again, I'm a little bit obsessed with it lately. And so we'll see. Maybe that rating will go up, although I have played it 27 times. So probably it's settled in where it's going to stay. All right, the next honorable mention I want to talk about is in this pile, and that is Food Chain Island. So I played Food Chain Island 17 times in August. This is another one of those that you can play multiple times in a row, and is one of the ones that when you don't quite get it, but you get close, you want to play it again immediately. It is grid movement, and on Board Game Geek, it's classified as network and route building. I wasn't really sure about that. I can kind of see how you would say it's network and route building. It works a little bit like Numbsters in that the numbers on the card determine how cards are going to be removed from the grid. And so what you're trying to do is get cards adjacent to each other that are not necessarily consecutive, but larger numbers will be predators and they have prey, which will be the smaller number. And so they can eat an animal that is numbered 1, 2, or 3 values lower than it. And number, I think it starts with 0 actually. I think it goes from 0 to 17. And each one has a movement associated with it that after you use it to get rid of another card to eat a prey, then you do the action on the animal that usually involves some sort of movement, or if it doesn't involve a movement, it's going to dictate some either way that eating can happen on the next turn or some consequence of that eating. And so it's really cute. It's really cute. So it's supposed to be representing sort of rudimentary food chain sort of idea. That's Food Chain Island. Great game. Really enjoyed that one. Oh, I think I didn't say the weight, the Board Game Geek weight is 1.29, The average rating on Board Game Geek is a 7.2, and my rating of it is also a 7.2. So I totally line up with the average rating on Board Game Geek. And that is Food Chain Island, another honorable mention. The final honorable mention I want to talk about is Naturopolis. This is a tile placement layering, well, I say tile placement, card placement layering sort of game where you're building routes and matching up, you're matching colors really, but different habitats or different natural areas, I guess. It is built on the game, or it's an iteration of the game Sprawlopolis, which I love, and so I knew I would like Naturopolis. It's got a couple of little tweaks to it that are different that I haven't totally explored. I've only played it 3 times, Naturopolis, but I've played Sprawlopolis 27 times, and so I just haven't fully explored Naturopolis yet. I haven't played all of the challenges that are in it, but I've really enjoyed my plays of it so far, and just based on my love of Sprawlopolis, I know that I will get a lot more plays out of this one. It plays 1 to 4 players. However, I have only ever played Sprawlopolis solo, and I don't think I will ever play it more players than that. If you play it with more than 1 player, it's a cooperative game. The average weight on Board Game Geek is 1.64. The average rating on Board Game Geek is a 7.8. My rating of it also a 7.8. Second one that I've totally aligned with the average rating on Board Game Geek. But what you are trying to do is fulfill certain cards. So for each play of this, you'll have 3 cards that will have a certain requirement on them for scoring. So like for instance, this one says you get 1 point per campsite that is adjacent to another campsite on a different block type. So some of these cards have a little picture of a tent in one of the squares. So each card is made up of 4 squares. Some of them will have a river running through them. Some of them will have a road running through them. And then it's got these 4 habitats. One's water, looks like maybe, I don't know what the pink is, maybe grassland, forest, and rocky areas, canyons maybe. And so you'll score based on getting the same color next to each other and based on your rivers. You also will score, I think you score the longest length of river. It's been a while since I played, I can't remember exactly. Naturopolis, like Sprawlopolis, dings you for your roads. So you want to have as few roads as possible, so you try and connect those up. I'm terrible at both Naturopolis and Sprawlopolis, actually, but I really enjoy them. They're really fun. It does require a fair bit of table space to play, but not too bad. I actually think it requires less table space than ROVE. So anyway, that's Naturopolis, and that is my last honorable mention. All right, now before we get on to the channel relevant games, I just have 2 more games I want to talk about. And these are games I got from the library. So I recently discovered that our library has games you can check out. This is a new thing. I know this is a new thing. It has not been going on for a long time. The first one I checked out that was on the shelf there when I discovered this was Deep Sea Adventure. And this is a game I had been wanting to play for a long time, but really didn't have an interest in buying it. It never looked... it just didn't necessarily look like what I knew I wanted in my collection, but I definitely wanted to play it, and so this was a great opportunity. We ended up playing it 3 times. This is a push your luck, pick up and deliver game. It plays 2 to 6 players, plays in 30 minutes or less, I will say. The weight on Board Game Geek is a 1.18. The average rating on Board Game Geek is a 6.9, very close to my rating of a 7. And so what you do in this game is you have, I want to say it's 3 different kinds of tiles, maybe 4, that will be arranged in sort of a curvy line. You can arrange them however you want. Those 4 different groups of tiles have different values on one side, and that will stay hidden during the game while you're traveling in the game. This will make more sense in a minute. I'm doing a terrible job on explaining this. So anyway, you have divers and you are connected to this boat. And what I love about this game is you're rolling, well, okay, I don't love the fact that you're rolling a die, but you're rolling a die to move. Most of the time you're going to land on a tile that you can then choose to take and put in front of you, but you can't look at the value of it. It goes face down in front of you. And here's where it gets tricky. You roll 2 dice and that value is how many you move, but you have to subtract a number equal to the number of tiles you have collected on that round, and it's played over 3 rounds. And not only that, but there is a finite amount of air, and apparently you are all divers, you're all sharing the air, and so at the start of your turn, based on how many tiles you have in front of you, the air will go down that much in value. So if you have 2 tiles in front of you, the air goes down 2. And I want to say it was maybe 25 total for the air that you had available to you at the start of the game. So as people are collecting tiles, they're using up more air. And what we quickly learned, we were terrible. We all, I don't think any of us got any points on our first game. Maybe we got some in the last round. It's played over 3 rounds. But what we discovered is you can't go down very far because you're never going to make it back up. You have to make it back up to the boat or you don't get the points from your treasure. So it is a lot of fun. I don't know that it's necessarily one I need to have in my collection since I know the library has it. Check it out every once in a while and we can play it that way. But it was a lot of fun, Deep Sea Adventure. I've heard a lot of people rave about this game. We like Push Your Luck. If you like Push Your Luck, you'll probably enjoy this. If you don't like Push Your Luck, if you don't like rolling dice for movement, you might not like it. But we found it to be quite fun. My mom really enjoyed it, actually. Okay, so that was Deep Sea Adventure. It was a library game that was new to me in August. Another one that was new to me in August and one that I have wanted to play for so long and I will now definitely be adding to my collection at some point, and that is Boop. So we got this from the library. I was so excited they had it. I actually had to put it on reserve for hold, put it on hold. So we were able to get that. We played it twice in August. I played it once with my son and once with my partner, and I really enjoyed it. Actually, we all enjoyed it. Aiden enjoyed it. That's our son. My partner enjoyed it. And so definitely I'll be getting this at some point. I'm just going to wait for it to go on sale. But this is grid movement. And actually on Board Game Geek, it says grid movement, pattern building, and slide/push. And so the way that it works is you start with kittens and you take turns placing your kittens on this grid. The grid is representing a bed. So very cute theme. And you are trying to get 3 kittens in a row. Once you get 3 kittens in a row, you can replace those kittens with a cat. And here's the tricky part. When you place a kitten on the board, if it ends up next to any other kittens, it boops them away. And so it repels them. So if I put a kitten on the board in between 2 other kittens, the other 2 kittens will move 1 space away in those directions. And so it's very tricky to get 3 of your kittens in a line on the board in order to get a cat. But the way it works is kittens can boop kittens, but they can't boop cats. And so if you place a kitten next to a cat, the cat doesn't move. Cats can boop kittens. So when you place a cat on the board, it will boop other cats and it will boop kittens. And what you are trying to do is get 3, I think this is right, 3 cats in a row. It was really fun, a really fun game. This it's 2-player only, plays in 20 to 30 minutes. Definitely like an abstract strategy game is what I would classify it as. Has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.31, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.1, and my rating of it is an 8. And that might go up once we are able to play this more often. I have a feeling it's going to be hard to get at the library. It would probably be checked out all the time. So definitely we're going to add this one to our collection at some point. So what I want to know is, does your local library have games to check out? If it does, have you taken advantage of that? I can say that I'm planning on donating games to our library. I checked with them and they said they do take donations. And so I'm planning on donating some games to our library that I probably wouldn't be able to sell for very much. These are family games that kids are going to enjoy. So have you done that? And if your library doesn't have board games, I encourage you to suggest it to them. Anyway, I'm looking forward to reading your comments about board games and libraries. Or maybe you have another way. I didn't think about this, but maybe you have another resource where you can check out games. I know, you can go to board game cafes, but I'm talking about games that you can bring home with you, check them out and bring home. So I would love to hear about opportunities for that. I think that's fantastic. All right, so next we are going to go on to the channel relevant games. All right, so if you recall, I actually played in August 18 games that were relevant to the channel. And this is if you include games with cats. This is a funny one for me because if I think of, there's some games that are just on the edge of being channel relevant games, and games with cats are like that for me, but they're animals. So I have sort of just decided to include them, partly because I have at least one person who has made comments on several videos who has a daughter who loves cats and always comments when I talk about games with cats. So they will stay in. At some point, I might talk about the dark side of cats related to birds, but for now, we'll keep it light and fun. So I am including games with cats And I also wanted to mention that I have already talked about, I'm looking at my list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've already talked about 5 of those 18 games. And so those were Unsurmountable, Aqua, ROVE, Food Chain Island, Naturopolis, and Boop. As always, you can use timestamps to skip around to only listen about games that you're interested in hearing me talk about. So now we have 13 more games to talk about that are channel relevant. So these are going to be nature-themed games, games with animals, science-themed games. I think this month we have, I think all of these are either nature-themed or pseudo-nature themed or have animals as their main theme. For a few of them, the theme is a little bit pasted on, but we'll talk about that. So the first one I want to talk about is Birds of a Feather, Western North America. And so there is a video for this out on the channel. I played this 2 times in August. I've played it a total of 5 times. One of those has been at 2-player, the other 4 times has been solo. It is a set collection and hand management game. It does play 1 to 7 players. However, my personal opinion is that this is best as a solo game. Now, I have heard, so Birds of a Feather Western North America is actually a re-implementation of Birds of a Feather. And I seem to recall somebody making a comment on the video that that one was actually quite good multiplayer. But it does play in about 15 to 30 minutes. I'd say this is about a 15-minute solo game. It's really good solo. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.2, an average rating of 6.9 on Board Game Geek, and my rating of it is a 7.2. Now that 7.2 is as a solo game. 2-player, it was good. However, what I didn't like about it 2-player, which I guess you can watch the video for my review, but it's just the way that you keep track of scoring during the game is a little bit clunky, I guess, which you don't have to use that mechanism of scoring during the solo game because you can simply use the cards to keep track of your score, which I really like. And so what you're doing here is it's like I said, it has hand management. I really like hand management games, and it's set collection. So 2 of my favorite mechanisms. You have a hand of cards, and there are cards that are going to come out of a deck as well. So it starts with you playing a card. Each card has both a habitat and a bird. And when you're playing a card from your hand, you're actually playing the habitat and the bird. And what you're looking for in the cards that then come out, there's arriving birds. Those arriving birds are then going to become lingering birds. So let's talk about the arriving birds first. With the arriving birds, there will be 3 of them. And if any of those match the habitat, if any of those habitats match the habitat that you put out, it's kind of like you're going bird watching in that habitat, and you might see these birds. So if they come out, you would then collect those birds. At the end of the turn, those arriving birds would now become lingering birds. So they're still lingering in their respective habitats, and then you would do the next turn where you play out a habitat/bird, and 3 arriving birds come out. Now, if any of those lingering birds or arriving birds match the habitat that you played, you get to collect those. And so what you are trying to do is collect sets. You get the most points if you manage to collect all the birds in a single habitat. The tricky part is in the solo game anyway, at the end of each turn, you have to discard a card from your hand and then draw a card from the deck. And so it's really tricky deciding which cards, because you don't always want to discard a card, right? So sometimes you have to make some tough choices, and that's what makes it fun, quite frankly, is making those tough choices. This would be a really fun multiplayer game, quite honestly, if the scoring mechanism were just a little bit different, maybe with chips. Actually, I have a 3D printer. I might give this a try. If I do, I'll let you know how it goes. Anyway, that is Birds of a Feather, Western North America. So check out my video for that for my full thoughts on that game. And that was number 13. Number 12 is a roll and write game called Trek 12 Himalaya. We played this twice in August. I've played it a total of 6 times, sort of a mix of multiplayer and solo. My games in August were multiplayer, but I've played it a few times solo as well. This plays 1 to 5 players, 15 to 30 minutes. The weight of this game on Board Game Geek is 1.47. The average rating is 6.8, and my rating of it is a 7.5. It's a really fun game. What you do in this is you roll 2 dice. What you do with the values of those dice determines what number you're going to write in one of the circles on the, it's sort of supposed to represent a mountainside that you are traversing, I guess, the Himalayas, in the Himalayas. There's one for the Amazon too, but I cannot find it anywhere. And if I ever find it, I will get it. I really want to get it. I don't know how that one works. I haven't looked really closely at it, but I like this one enough that I wouldn't mind getting the Amazon version. Anyway, back to what you do. You can either take the lowest of the 2 dice as the value, or the highest of the 2 dice as the value, or you can subtract the lower number from the higher number, or you can add the 2 numbers together, or you can multiply the 2 numbers. Now, the trick here is values can't go above 12, right? So you can't, for instance, multiply a 5 and a 4 to put 20 in there. And you're trying to do 2 things. You're trying to create chains of numbers that are consecutive. So, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or groups of numbers on your sheet that are the same value. And the way scoring works, so this makes it even more interesting. The way scoring works is you take the largest number of that chain, or the number that is that group, and add to that the number that is either in that group or in that chain. So like if I had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 5 numbers. The largest number is 6, and there's 5 of them, so that would be worth 11 points, for instance. And then there's some bonuses depending on your how long your longest chain is and how big your biggest group is. But it's really fun. My mom enjoyed this one. I actually have to go back after I left one thing out, and that is, here's where some tough decisions come in. You can do, so I think you get 24 turns in the whole game, and each of those, taking the lowest number, highest number, add, subtract, or multiply, so there's 5 things. You can do each of those a maximum of 5 times during the game. So one of them you'll only do 4. There'll be one, left blank at the end. So you get 24 turns in the game. Really fun. If you have any numbers that are off by themselves, then they count against you. I think it's, I can't remember if it's -3 or -1, but it's a minus. Anyway, that was number 12. Trek 12, I just realized it's number 12. Trek 12, Himalaya at number 12. That was not intentional. All right. Number 11 is a game that was new to me, and this is the one where I have to take out the pronunciation guide. Let's see. I think I remember this. Skoventyr. It looks like Skoventyr is how you want to say it. Actually, where's the box? I know I'm going to put a picture up, but anyway, here's the box right here. Skoventyr. What I do really love about this game, I love the gameplay, but I also love the fact that the rule book comes with a pronunciation guide. So this is inspired by Danish folklore. And so what you're doing, actually, let me just read this. Danes, don't get on me for my pronunciation. It's going to be terrible. So Gamle Erik is chasing Walker through the forest, represented by a ring of tree cards. If he catches him, the game is lost. So they're these cool, chunky little tokens. I'm just going to pull them out since I have it here. So this is Gamle Erik, and this is, what was his name again? Walker, this little badger. He's very cute. And you make a ring of cards. I'll put pictures up. Of course, they're probably up right now. You have a ring of trees, and you can do one of, I think it was 4 things. I have the cards right here. Yeah, you can do one of 4 actions on your turn based on these cards. You can do Walker's Wrath, Walker's Command, Walker's Gambit, or Walker's Call. And these are based on using cards that are either allies or adversaries. And what you are trying to do is get rid of these minions. And the danger here is that the forest cards have mechanisms by which they disappear, right, out of your forest ring. In a regular difficulty game, I think it's 6 of them. You can go up to 8. I have only won this game when I had either 7 or 8 cards. That's twice, once with 7, once with 8. I've not yet won it playing with 6 cards. It's very challenging, but very fun. What else did I want to say about this? Oh, I haven't told you. So set collection is the basic mechanism of it, but also this movement and I guess action selection. There's a long list of mechanisms actually on Board Game Geek. I have set collection plus in my notes. It's 1 to 4 players. So like I said, either co-op or solo, and plays in 15 to 30 minutes. So it plays very quickly. You can get a few games in a session pretty easily, and you will probably want to because it's very hard to win, but you get close enough that it makes you really want to play again. And I really like that. Tough decisions to make. The weight on Board Game Geek is 2.17. The average rating is 7.4. So well rated on Board Game Geek. My rating of it is pretty close to that. It's a 7.5. That could go up with more plays. I played it 6 times in the month of August, and I didn't play it yet in September. So I do need to get back to the table. I've not yet won, like I said, on regular difficulty, but I have won twice by starting with 1 or 2 extra trees. So if you're not winning with 6 trees, add a tree and see if that helps. But fun game. The artwork is very charming. I really like it, and that's Skoventyr at number 11. And that was new to me in August. Another one that was new to me in August is number 10. That is Nimalia. Now, we only played this once in August, but I'm dying to get it back to the table. This has some really fun mechanisms in it. It's closed drafting in the same style as 7 Wonders, tile placement and layering, although you're doing it with cards, and plays 2 to 4 players in 25 to 30 minutes. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 1.6, an average rating of 7.1, and my rating of it was a 7.5. And that could change, probably upwards. I've played it 1 time at 3 players with my partner and our son. We all enjoyed it, and the way it works is there's different ways to score. I think there's 5 different scoring mechanisms in each game, and they change, so this does give you a little bit of variability. But you play over, I think it was 3 rounds, and during each of those rounds, you're going to score in, I think it's 3 different ways, so a subset of the scoring methods. It works kind of like cartographers work, if you've played that one, where you have a subset of scoring mechanisms in each round that will overlap as you go through the rounds. But anyway, it was really fun. The artwork's cute. It's animals, and you are layering the animals to collect sets of them where they are adjacent to each other, right, in the sort of grid that you're making. But you always have to overlay your card you're placing by at least 1 square. You can overlay it by more. It kind of reminds me of the way layering works in another game that we have, which is something Chicken Army. Anyway, that's Nimalia. That was a pretty fun game. I rated it a 7.5, and I definitely need to get it to the table again. So that was number 10, Nimalia. At number 9 is a game I have been wanting to get to the table for a long time. I have had it for a while. I have 3 different versions of this game. I love all 3 of them. But number 9 was Ecosystem Savanna. So it's part of that ecosystem line of games that right here behind me. I have Ecosystem Savanna, Ecosystem Coral Reef, and just Ecosystem, which is the original one. They're all a lot of fun. I will caveat that with I've only played them solo. I have not played them multiplayer, but I think they would be good multiplayer. Anyway, Ecosystem Savanna I played 3 times in the month of August, so it was new to me in August. This is pattern building and set collections and hand management. I should add hand management to that. It does play 1 to 6 players in 15 to 20 minutes. It has a weight on Board Game Geek of 1.86, an average rating of 7.4. My rating is pretty close to that at a 7.5. And so what you are doing is you have a hand of cards. So I'm going to describe the solo game because I haven't played it multiplayer. I'm sure it's somewhat similar. And so you have a hand of cards, and as a solo player on each turn, you have to choose a card to play into your grid, and then you have to choose a card to play into your solo opponent's grid. So you're going to draw cards based on how many cards are in the solo opponent's grid, and I can't remember all the rules for that, but it's very fun. This was actually a solo mode that was originally designed for the original ecosystem by, oh no, I'm blanking on his first name, but he has a YouTube channel called Box of Delights, which if you have not checked it out, you absolutely should. He does solo games over there and actually has made rules for solo games. I actually used his rules for oh, it's over here somewhere. Oh, no, it's down here. On the origin of species. So if you've watched my video for On the Origin of Species, I used solo rules that were designed by the person whose name I'm forgetting. Ricky, I think it's Ricky. Ricky Royal. I actually don't think that's his real name, but that's what he goes by. And so he designed the rules for the original ecosystem solo mode, and then they became official. I think they were made official in ecosystem coral reef, and definitely by the time we get to Savanna. Really well thought out, works really well, causes you to make some, tough decisions. Your goal is to not only beat the solo opponent in terms of score, but by a certain amount. There's target scores for you to meet as far as how much your score exceeds their score. And cards will score depending on where they are relative to other types of cards in the game. It's really fun. The scoring in each of the ecosystem games, the animals, of course, are all different in each of the games, and the scoring is a little bit different in each of the games. So they're all different enough that I'm actually totally happy to own all three of them. Anyway, that was number 9, Ecosystem Savanna, new to me in August. At number 8 is a game I've mentioned before, and that is a trick-taking game called Seas of Strife. Originally, this was called Texas Showdown, so the theme is completely painted on. It's just pretty art on the cards, but I have to mention it because it's beautiful artwork of the sea and done by one of my favorite artists, board game artists, who is Beth Sobel. Anyway, we played this one time in August. We've played it 6 times total. I feel like we've played it more than that. Maybe I'm missing a few plays of it in Board Game Geek, possibly. Anyway, this is a trick-taking game where you're trying to win the fewest tricks, and it has multiple suits, and each suit has a range of numbers, but it's not always the same amount of numbers. The tricky part here is you can play out a particular suit, which, as in a normal trick-taking game, everybody has to follow suit if they can. If they can't, they can play whatever they want. There's no trump suit. However, here's the tricky part. Let's say I can't remember the names of all the suit, but I'm gonna just say I play one suit and somebody else plays a different suit. Now, the next person can play either of those 2 suits, would be totally valid, and the person who wins the trick is determined by which suit is represented by the most cards that people have played, and who has the highest number. They will win that trick, and then they get to lead the next trick, and you're trying to win the fewest tricks throughout the game. Anyway, really fun. Seas of Strife. It's quickly become one of my favorite quick card games that we have. I think I didn't say this. Plays 3 to 6 players in 45 minutes, has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.2, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.3, and my rating of it is a 7.6. So, like I said, a lot of our card games, for me, the rating falls into that sort of 7 to 8 range. These are all great games. These are games I really enjoy playing. They're usually not very complex games. So that's why a rating of only 7.6. It's a good rating. Okay, so that was number 8, Seas of Strife. Number 7 is another game I've talked about before, and that is CuBirds. Played this one time in August. We've played it says 4 times total. Maybe that's right. I feel like we've played it a few more times than that. This is multiplayer only as far as I know. I don't think there's a solo mode for this one. This is set collection and hand management. It's really fun. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.32, an average rating of 6.9, and my rating of it is a 7.7. And what you do in this is you have your hand of cards and you are trying to collect sets of birds, flocks. You can have a small flock or a large flock, and whether you collect a small flock or a large flock is going to determine whether you add 1 or 2 cards to your play area. And what you're trying to do is either get one of each type of bird, I think there's 7 different types right in that ballpark, or 2 sets of 3. And how you do that is pretty clever. There will be 4 rows of cards on the table, and when you decide to play a card out of your hand, you pick a particular bird and you have to play all copies of that bird that you have. So if you have 3, say, sandpipers, you have to play all 3 of them. You put them on either end of one of the rows, and if there's another sandpiper in that row, you get all the cards in between the sandpipers, but not the sandpipers. And so now the row is left with either just sandpipers, or if there were cards on other side of the sandpiper in the row. It's a little clunky to explain, but anyway, it's really fun. It's very clever. Anyway, that's number 7, CuBirds. Number 6 from the channel relevant games that we played in August is another cat game, and that is the Isle of Cats. And we played this twice in August. We've played this 9 times total, although I will say that with a caveat, there are 2 modes to this game. There's family mode and regular mode, which is more strategic thinking, more gamery. And so we've played, I think a couple of those 9 games have been in family mode. So this is tile placement, open drafting, pattern building, and set collection. Lots of fun. Has a Board Game Geek weight of 2.36, so that's not going to be the family mode. If I had to put a weight on the family mode, probably somewhere between a 1.8 and a 2. I don't know. If you think something different, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm open to suggestions there. It's just off the top of my head. Has an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.7. And my rating of it is an 8. I'm going to mention the designer on this one is Frank West, because when I talk about the crowdfunding games, I'm going to talk about a game that he has up on crowdfunding. So what do you do in this game? You are basically, the premise is you have a boat, there is an island, you are rescuing cats off the island before, I guess it's like the big evil cat gets them. I don't know exactly what the theme is, which tells you it's a bit pasted on, but the artwork is fantastic with these cats. They come in, I think it's 4 different colors, and then there's wild ones as well that can be any color, and you are trying to arrange these tiles. So the cats tiles are all in different shapes, and you're trying to arrange them on your boat in ways that create families. So you have all your purple ones next to each other and all your red ones next to each other. The boat itself is divided up into sections, and so every one of those sections that you don't cover all the spaces counts against you at the end of the game. So you have to be a little strategic in the way that you are placing your tiles. You will have some private objectives. There will be public objectives that you're trying to fulfill. And in order to draft those cats, there is an economy of baskets and boots. It's a really fun solo game too. We only played it multiplayer in August. I will caveat my comment about the solo game. So it is a really fun solo game. However, I don't play the big box version solo anymore because I happen to have Isle of Cats Explore and Draw. It's the roll and write version of Isle of Cats. It is a fantastic solo game and easy setup and putting it away and all that, because you don't have all the tiles to deal with. But the tiles are fun in the multiplayer game because they're chunky and it's fun placing them. So both of those are good. But the one I'm talking about that we played in August is the big box actual physical tiles game. And that was the Isle of Cats at number 6. At number 5 is a game I've definitely talked about before. I actually have 2 videos up on the channel for this, and that is Waypoints. I actually also have a play along. So the 2 videos I have on the channel are play alongs, so you can get the map. This is a print and play roll and write where you pay, I think it's £5. I think it comes out to 4 something at the rate of exchange right now if you're in the United States. You just print it yourself, and they do have low ink versions if you don't want to do a lot of color ink, but I do have 2 play alongs, so come play along with me and put your score in the comments. So there's 2 of those on the channel. There's about to be a 3rd one. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. If you are a Patreon supporter, there actually is a 3rd play along. So I have maps 1 and 2 are public, and then map 3 is a private play along for Patreon supporters. And what I will say is I will have another play along coming out because the 4th map was just released actually 2 days ago. And if there hadn't been a hurricane that started in Florida and moved its way up through the Carolinas and Tennessee and Georgia, and I think even parts of Alabama, I would have already had a video up for that because I actually played it a handful of times on Friday. But I actually lived in Asheville, North Carolina for a number of years. I think it was 6 or 7 years. And so I have friends there. And I don't, know if you know what just happened there, but it has been, it's devastating. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about it because I will start crying again. This is why I didn't record this yesterday, because my eyes were all red and puffy. So anyway, I'll probably cut all that out. So sorry to go off on a tangent. You're used to it by now. Let's get back to talking about waypoints. So this says it plays from 1 to 100 players. You can play 1 to any number of players over video because you're just limited by maps, basically. It's a roll and write route building game. The base map, so there's 4 maps out now. So the original map, you are hiking through the woods and up and down mountains and that sort of thing. The second map, I think, was the one where you are on an island on the shore, and then you're out on boats and scuba diving. So it's a water-based map, and it has coral reefs and all of that. The third map was the desert. I may have those 2 backwards. The second map might be the desert, and the third one might be the water one. Anyway, those are the second and third maps. And the fourth map that just came out is a winter one where you are skiing. Actually, it looks like it's a combination of cross-country skiing. Well, actually, maybe all cross-country, but there are ski lifts. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Spoiler alert. These roll and writes, these Waypoints roll and writes, are surprisingly thematic. When I play map 1, which is the hiking with the mountains and the forests and all that, I don't know how it does it. You're rolling dice to determine how far you get to move based on these topo lines that are on the map. It gives you a sense of hiking through the woods. I don't know how it does it with just dice and you're drawing lines on a map. It's baffling to me, but it does a great job. The desert one, also very thematic. Maybe the least thematic to me as far as feeling that is invoked when you're playing it is probably the water one, but I really like that one because it has some really interesting decisions in it. They all do. And then this most recent one with the skiing, the winter sort of theme, is also a lot of fun. I have played Waypoints a total of 22 times. I only played it 1 time in August. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 1.37. It's a very light game, very fun. Average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.2. My rating of it is an 8. Probably it will stay around that rating. So like I said, the 4th map has just been released, so I will put out a play along for that at some point soon. Okay, so that was number 5, Waypoints. At number 4 is another game that has a video out on the channel recently, and that is Verdant. I played this 5 times in the month of August, all solo, and I will say that that was actually my first solo plays of Verdant. I've played Verdant a total of 13 times, but let's see, so if 5 of them were solo, that would make 8 times that I've played it multiplayer. I really enjoyed this one solo. I don't know why it took me so long to play it solo. It's really fun. It's a relaxing, fun puzzle with charming artwork. I'm pretty sure it's Beth Sobel is the artist on this one. It has a Board Game Geek weight of 2.05, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 7.4. My rating of it is an 8.2. It plays 1 to 5 players in 45 to 60 minutes. And so what you are doing is you are drafting cards from a central card token market. So it has 2 rows of cards. It has a row that's plants and a row that are rooms. And there's 4 cards in each row. And this works the same whether it's solo or multiplayer. And then there's a token in between each pair of plant and room cards. And what you're doing on your turn is you're choosing 1 card to draft and you take the matching token. And then when you take the card that you didn't take that's in that column, I'll call it that column, you would put a green thumb on. And so this is how you get those green thumbs that allow you to do special things. And you will take the card that you just drafted and place it in a grid in front of you. So every player is making their own grid, and you have to alternate room and plant cards. And what you are trying to do to score the most points is to put cards that have a particular color ribbon which matches the type of plant that they are. You're trying to place that next to a room that matches the color ribbon, and that's how you'll score the most points. But even if you don't match the room and the plant, if you match lighting abilities, you're going to put something on that plant called verdancy. Once you have an amount of verdancy on that plant that is equal to a value shown on that card, then you get to pot it, and that's going to allow you to earn a maximum value of points from that plant. And so that's what you're doing. A lot of fun. I really enjoy playing Verdant. So that was number 4, Verdant. At number 3 is Wingspan. We played this once in August, but we have played it. Okay, so actually I mentioned I've started recording my plays in Board Game Geek in January of 2022, but we've had this for a lot longer than January of 2022. So it says in BGG that I've played this 17 times, but that's not true. I've probably played it at least twice that many times. But we only played it once in August. This is a game that most people are familiar with, but if you're not, is a tableau building, hand management, set collection game with birds as a theme. You have 3 habitats, and you're placing birds into those 3 habitats. These are preserves, right? Wildlife preserves. It plays 1 to 5 players in 40 to 70 minutes, has a Board Game Geek weight of 2.47, an average rating on Board Game Geek of 8, and my rating of it is a 9.3. I really like Wingspan. Most of my plays of this have been multiplayer, and this is a game that my mom really likes. This is the heaviest game that we can play with her, I think because of the theme. And so, but she really likes this one. And so what you are doing in Wingspan is on your turn, you can either play a bird into one of your 3 habitats, or you can do one of the actions associated with those habitats. So in the forest habitat, if you choose that action, you can collect food, and then if you have birds in that habitat that have particular abilities, you get to do those abilities. Or in the prairie habitat, you get to lay eggs, and again, if you have birds that can be activated in that habitat, you get to do their abilities. And then the last one is collecting more bird cards. So you can, it's an open drafting mechanism where you can choose from 3 face-up cards, or you can just draw randomly to bring cards into your hand. And you're trying to fulfill private objectives, and you earn points based on the birds that you've played into your habitats and the eggs that are on those birds at the end of the game. Really fun. Love Wingspan. I think it has gotten a lot of people into board gaming. You can find this one at Target and Walmart, and Barnes & Noble is carrying a lot of board games. So a lot of people, I think, discovered board gaming through Wingspan. I don't necessarily recommend this as a gateway game, though, because it is a heavier game. I'm wondering, because I know a fair number of you that watch this channel probably have played Wingspan, and I'm wondering if it was, if not the first, one of the very first board games that you played to get you into the hobby. And if not, what was your first board game that got you into the hobby? Anyway, that was Wingspan at number 3. At number 2 is a game that was new to me in August that also has a video up on the channel now, and that is Lands of the Mesozoic. This is a tableau building, hand management, and set collection game for 1 to 4 players. I'm going to caveat this. Plays according to Board Game Geek in 20 to 120 minutes. If you have managed to play this game in 20 minutes, I want to know about it. Because I don't even think I could play a solo game in 20 minutes. And here's why. This game is played over 3 rounds that are called periods. And in the first period, you have 7 turns. In the second period, you have 6 turns. And in the third period, you have 5 turns. So that is a total of 18 turns. So to be able to play this game in 20 minutes, you're taking not much over a minute for each of your turns. Now, granted, I will say, especially in the start of the game, a lot of those turns are going to take less than a minute. So I want to say my playthrough in the video, the actual play time was around 90 minutes. It always takes me longer in videos to play a solo game than it does in real life because I am talking out loud through each of my turns. And so I think I could play a game of Lands of the Mesozoic, a solo game. I think I could play in about 60 minutes. When we played 3-player, I want to say it took about 90 minutes. I think it was about a 90-minute game. On the box, it just says victory in under 2 hours. That is certainly correct. I think even at 4 players, you would be done within 2 hours. The weight on Board Game Geek is a 2.2. I think that's about right. I don't know how many. Well, I will say the average rating is 7.3, and that's with 62 ratings. Even fewer people will put a weight in, and so that weight is subject to an up or down movement because it's probably very few people who have weighed in on that. Pun not intended. I haven't weighed in on it. Anyway, my rating of this right now, 9.4. I loved this game. So it's tableau building. It definitely has some things in common with Wingspan, but is definitely a different game. So, if you like Wingspan, you might like this. And certainly it's got that animal theme, but in this case, it's mostly dinosaurs. I keep saying that it's dinosaurs, but I don't want to sell it short. It has mammals, it has some birds, and what else was in there? I want to say it has at least 1 amphibian. Anyway, they're not all dinosaurs, but they're mostly dinosaurs. There's 105 unique animals in this game, and then it has land cards. So you have 3 rows, kind of like you do in Wingspan, but these rows will accommodate different numbers of cards because what you're doing is creating an ecosystem that is representing basically a very simple food chain where you have your land cards at the base, then you have your herbivores, and then you have your carnivores. Included in your herbivores are some omnivores, just for simplicity and gameplay sake. So you always have to have more land cards than herbivores, otherwise you get imbalance, right? You always have to have more herbivores than carnivores. And so I like that mechanism there. And here's a really cool part, which you can't do in Wingspan, and that is that you can play out cards, but there are ways to remove those cards from your board and still score them at the end of the game. And so you get this dynamic tableau state, which is really cool. You have to pay to play cards by exhausting cards already on your board. And so it's a tough decision between, do I want to use that card to play another card, or do I want to do the ability on that card, because you can only choose one of those things. Anyway, you're earning points through the cards that you play on your board, through a private objective, a public objective, and through a race to fulfill certain requirements, like playing a certain number of herbivores or a certain number of carnivores or that sort of thing. So you'll earn points that way as well. And between each of the periods, there is a major extinction event. So there's two major extinction events, one after period 1 and one after period 2. But you have to basically get rid of some of the cards on your board, extinct them. It amounts to extincting, I think, one each of carnivores, herbivores, and land cards. So there's also a card that you will turn over. So there's a random element to that major extinction event that will make you either discard cards or exhaust cards that are on your board. There's different things that can happen, none of them positive for you, but keeps the game interesting and fun. Definitely lots of variability because there's lots of these major extinction event cards, tons of different animals, so 105 different animals. The artwork is stunning, is so beautiful. It was actually done by an award-winning paleo artist, so you know all of those animals are correct, right, in their looks, at least as far as we know. The designer, Ander Guinea, is I can't remember what subject he's a lecturer in, but he's a lecturer at an Australian university. I want to say geology, maybe. So the science in it, I was really impressed with that, and it comes with this fantastic book that gives you a little bit of information about each animal. It gives you some history for the so this all happens in the Mesozoic, as the title suggests, and so it gives you a little bit of history of that time period. It has a really nice FAQ, so make sure the first time you play this game that you know that that FAQ is back there, because we didn't actually the first time we played it. Really fun game, actually. Anyway, so I should stop talking. You should go watch the video. It has my review at the end of it, and that is Lands of the Mesozoic at number 2. Again, new to me in August, and I do have a video out for that one. And then at number 1, also a video out for this one, and this is one of my all-time favorite games, and that is Ark Nova. I actually played this 6 times in the month of August, all of them solo. I've played this a total of 55 times. And it's a pretty good mix of solo and multiplayer. Most of those multiplayer have been 2-player with my partner. We both really enjoy this game. It is hand management, set collection, tile placement, where you are building a zoo with tiles, right? So you're making enclosures for the zoos. The animals are on the cards, and they have a certain cost to be able to put them into your zoo, and that's where all this hand management comes into. It plays 1 to 4 players in 90 to 150 minutes. When you play the solo game, you have a set number of turns, and it is not very many. And so very challenging solo game. Well, I've only played the official mode for the solo game. I really like it. It's a beat your own score, but I have no problem with that. And I find it quite challenging. And it allows me to explore different strategies in the game, which is a lot of fun. I now have the Marine Worlds expansion, which I really like. It adds some great things to an already great game, in my opinion. This has a weight on Board Game Geek of 3.77, so it's definitely a heavier game. An average rating on Board Game Geek of 8.5, and that's after 46,000 ratings. My rating of it is a 10, and that has not budged in a long time. I revisit this every once in a while. I will tell you also that right now on Board Game Geek, it is ranked 4 overall out of all the games on Board Game Geek, and ranked number 3 in strategy games. And so those rankings are based on a secret, very well-guarded formula, but that I think takes into account not only ratings, but how often that game is played, which is counted by plays logged on BoardGameGeek, how many times people visit that page. It probably includes things like wish lists and fans and stuff like that. So anyway, right now it's number 4 on BoardGameGeek, and one of my all-time favorite games. So check out that video, and that is number 1 out of channel relevant games, Ark Nova. Okay, so that was the channel relevant games, and this video is going to be so long. I'm sorry. Hopefully you enjoy that, but please do remember there are timestamps down in the description if you want to skip around. But now I want to talk about crowdfunding games. So I've been doing this. I didn't have much to talk about last month because there was a real lull in July crowdfunding games. I don't know why and if it's like that all the time, but they saved them all up for August apparently. So I backed 3 games in August, but 2 of them were print and play games. So I didn't actually spend a ton of money. I backed Hyve, which is called Hyve, a colorful beehive simulator. This is a print and play game. It's a roll and write abstract strategy game. Plays 1 to 2 players and in 45 to 90 minutes. And I'm just going to read this summary because I haven't played this yet. It says each turn you roll dice equal to your population. These rolled dice represent your worker bees. Using these bees, you then select actions you wish to perform, and then all of your remaining bees are used to gather nectar, which builds you a very colorful hive. You struggle to stay alive against the constant threats of nature, lead your colony from merely surviving to thriving. It looks really good, and honestly, the thing that convinced me to back this game, other than the fact that it was relatively cheap because it's a print and play game, and I tend to enjoy print and play games, so there's that. But it was a video on the channel Board Games for One, and so I'll provide a link to that down below, and then we're going to talk actually about another video on that same channel here in just a little bit. But they have a really nice preview video that has a really fun intro, so go check that out. The other print and play that I backed in August was Koala Rescue Club, largely based on the fact that it was designed by Phil Walker Harding, and I tend to love his games, and it was a print and play, did not cost much money. It's a roll and write pattern building game. It says 1 to 100 players. I'm willing to bet this is another one of those that I could do a play along and you could play along with me. So if that is the case, I will do that. I don't think this is fulfilled yet, but I'd have to check my email. It plays in 20 to 30 minutes. And so the description for this one says, Koala Rescue Club is a puzzly polyomino game with 2 layers of decisions. First, you need to draw trees in specific shapes. Then you need to draw configurations of koalas on top of those trees. Cascading bonuses give you extra actions to work with, and merit badges give you goals to plan toward on each map, and provides exciting simultaneous play with an important message. So this is about koala conservation. And actually there's my answer, that plays any number of players. I forgot that I had read that earlier. So there you have it. I will definitely do a play along with this one at some point. Koala bears are so cute. I really like that. So if this was a physical game and not a roll and write game, you would be laying down tiles, right, for the trees and then playing koalas on top of those tiles. That's the basic idea. So that sounds really fun. The other game that I backed in, actually I backed this in September, but it was at the very start of September, and I wanted to mention it because it's actually still on crowdfunding and closes on October 10th. So I didn't want to save this for the next month's blog. And that is LUDOS, the Ancient Games Collection for Africa. I backed this for the Asia collection and have really enjoyed it. It comes in this very clever box. However, there's different levels of backing that you can do. But for this one, it is 4 games from Africa. They're all 2-player abstract strategy games. And so this is true for the ones in the Asia collection as well. So the way this works is these are games, like ancient games from specific countries that this company, what they're interested in, and it all started with a game called Bagchal, which I backed when it first came out, and I've been supporting this company ever since, because what they do is they take these ancient games for these countries and sort of revive them, right, and make them available to a wider audience. But not only that, this is the part that I think is super cool. is for each game, or every 2 games, I think, for this Africa collection that are backed, they're going to donate a game to a school, or let's see, I have it in my notes, to schools, NGOs, and communities in Africa. And then for the Asia collection, it was for Asia. When they did Bag Chal originally, that is from Nepal, and so they donated those games to Nepal, to schools. I think it was all schools in that one. And get this, they did this with the first game they had, Bag Chal, and they're doing it again. I think they did it for the Asia collection, is they do have a pay what you want tier. You can choose one of the 4 games and pay what you want. You do have to pay shipping, and that will be anywhere from $8 to $11, depending on where in the world it is shipping to. Eventually, they're going to feature games from, so they've already done Asia, this one's for Africa, they're going to do the Americas and Europe. For this one, it is $41 for the collection of 4 games, which I think is totally reasonable. They all come in these little satin bags, and they have a cloth board and these little wooden pieces. They're quite beautiful, easy to carry around, great travel games. They're all 2-player abstract strategy. I think I mentioned that. And then shipping to the US, very reasonable, $15. So depending on where you are, that could change. I think that's very reasonable. So that was LUDOS, the Ancient Game Collection, Africa. So those are the 3 games I backed in August. Well, LUDOS was early September. Now I want to talk about, let's see, what is it? 4 games that are either on crowdfunding right now or are about to be. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the one that's about to be. The other 3, actually, I think it's more than 3. My notes say 5. Then there's another 5 that are in crowdfunding. Don't worry, I'm going to go through these really quick. The first one I'll spend a little more time on because it's the one that I'm most interested in, and that is Earth 2053 Tipping Point. This launches on October 15th. It plays 1 to 4 players in 40 to 75 minutes. It is a tableau building, hand management, has some investment, some negotiation, and has variable player powers. This is a cooperative game or solo game, right? They both play the same, the solo and cooperative. They say on the information page on the Crimson Company website that it was, quote, created in cooperation with Uwe Rosenberg. So I think that he consulted on the game, which I find very reassuring for gameplay reasons because I like Uwe Rosenberg's games. He's not listed as a designer, but obviously had a hand in the end product, the way this game ended up. So this is a little bit of quote with some of my tweaks to it. I have watched a video on this, and I have read the information page, and I've read through part of the rule book. I will say in the rule book, they say we did our best to base the model or this game on scientific research and provide a good balance between educational value and fun. And you're going to see where the fun comes in. I mean, I think in the whole gameplay it comes in, but there's a really neat mechanism in this game. So in Earth 2053 Tipping Point, players represent countries. You're going to represent the leader of a country in particular, that work together to prevent a global climate catastrophe. The main scoring happens on a physical seesaw board where prevention tokens are placed on one side and pollution tokens on the other. Filling the prevention side lets all players win, or the solo player if you're playing solo, with optional placements based on who contributed the most in that particular round or turn. I don't know exactly how that works. However, if the board tips towards the pollution side, all players lose. And this is the tricky part. So there's rules to how you put the tokens in the seesaw, but it's not a predictable number of pollution tokens that will cause the seesaw to tip, because that's going to be based on how many of those preservation tokens you have on the other side. So there is a preview video and a playthrough video on the Economic Board Games website. You should check that out. I'll put links down below in the description for this one. So check it out. From the designer, I actually talked with the designer over email because I wanted to know the basis for that statement in the rulebook, that they did their best to base this on scientific research and provide a good balance between educational value and fun. So I just want to read to you what the designer said about that. Because I figure a lot of you will be interested in this. And what they said is the main logic of the game is that through transformative projects, you can improve the living conditions within a country. This in turn provides you as a leader with the influence needed to act on a global level to combat climate change. They go on to say it is based on the idea of the donut economics model by Kate Raworth, which suggests a balance between meeting the needs of the population and not overextending planetary resources. So one of the things you have to do in this game is fulfill, I can't remember what they call them, projects. I think it's projects where you have to, you have to be able to feed your people and house your people. And I can't remember all of the different categories, but the things that you would have to think about as a country leader, right, to take care of your people and also try not to destroy the planet at the same time. Now, I will say I also read the designer diary, so I'll provide a link to all of this down in the description. But I read a designer diary where they were talking about how they came up with the idea for this game, and then they started to design it before this game came out, Daybreak, which I haven't yet played, but is also a climate change cooperative game, right? Where you're combating climate change, I think, as a country. And they were very worried when it came out, but apparently the mechanisms are quite different now. I haven't played Daybreak and obviously have not also played Earth 2053, but I think from what I've read, you would be fine owning both of them. Okay. But watch the video that's on the Economic Board Games channel. See what you think of it. Anyway, that goes to Kickstarter on October 15th. I'm really interested in this one. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. And that is Earth 2053 Tipping Point. Next up in crowdfunding games is March of the Ants Evolved Edition. So I have not played the original March of the Ants, but it gets good reviews on Board Game Geek. This is on Kickstarter. This closes October 10th at noon Mountain Time. This is an area majority tile placement grid movement game, plays 1 to 5 players in 60 to 90 minutes. And what it says is that March of the Ants puts players in control of an ant nest, competing for success with rival nests. You will explore the unknown reaches of the meadow, evolve your ants to create new species, and vie for control of the Great Tunnel. March of the Ants is an open-ended strategy game with many paths to victory. As your nest grows and your ants evolve, you must carefully craft your strategy to emerge victorious. So, like I said, I haven't played the original March of the Ants. If you have, I would love to hear about it in the comments, to hear what you think, maybe compare it to games I might have played already. But the artwork has me intrigued. The pictures I've seen for this game have me intrigued. They're selling the standard edition for $49. Shipping to the US is $18. Another thing that attracts me to this game is one of the two designers is Tim Eisner, who designed Canopy and Canopy Evergreen. I love both those games. And he also designed, I can't remember, but yeah, I'll put up a text box. Anyway, I'm really intrigued by this one. So that's March of the Ants Evolved Edition. Closes October 10th at noon Mountain Time. Next up, I want to talk about EcoLogic Europe. This closes October 22nd. This is on GameFound. The time is unknown. GameFound doesn't actually list the time. It actually doesn't list the date that it closes. It just says it has this many days left. So I kind of extrapolated from that and figured out maybe October 22nd, right around there anyway. This plays 1 to 7 players in 90 to 120 minutes. It is a tableau building, engine building game where plants produce food that feeds animals. There's hand management, there's open drafting, there's set collection. I'm going to read you the quote and then I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but it says, EcoLogic is a beautiful logic game whose mechanics were created to show the relationships between plants, fungi, and animals. Players create complex ecosystems using cards representing hundreds of living organisms inhabiting a variety of habitats. This was designed by Boris Binkowski, who has a PhD in geography and is also incredibly interested in pedagogy and education. So I have watched the designer's sort of how to play video and looked at the pictures and the descriptions. I'm still not entirely sure exactly what you do, but I think the idea is that you are playing plant cards and then those plants are going to be used to feed animals, and it's a tableau building game, but engine building in the sense that then food is provided ongoing throughout the game. I can't remember how many rounds. Oh, four, if I recall, 4 seasons. It's played over all 4 seasons. I can't tell from this how good the game is. Like, I can't tell because there's no playthrough, and I much prefer playthroughs for getting a sense of how a game plays. I did try to get a hold of the designer through GameFound to ask. I let them know that I was going to mention this in this vlog, and I asked them some questions that I can't remember now at this point because it's actually been about a week, and they have not got back to me. This is a first-time designer. I'm a little alarmed that there's no shipping information on the Kickstarter page, because in one of the comments, in the comment section, they thought it would be just a few dollars more for shipping. And those of us who have backed Kickstarter pledges know that shipping is not cheap, right, for an entire boxed board game. So I don't know about that, but they are selling the standard pledge for 39 euros and the all-in pledge for 65 euros. And there's various expansions that are already available, different habitat groupings. I'm intrigued. Color me intrigued. I don't know if I'm going to back this one. If they don't have shipping information, I just don't know. But the artwork is phenomenal. And it doesn't close until October 22nd-ish. The game is on Board Game Geek, but it doesn't have the designer listed. It doesn't have the artist listed. This information is on the Game Found page. And so it would be nice if there was some additional information on Board Game Geek. That would be good. So color me intrigued for EcoLogic Europe. But I don't know how good this game is going to be, or, if it's worth it, and how much shipping will be. Okay, so, gotta talk faster. We'll go through the last three relatively quickly. The next one I want to talk about is Nature. This doesn't close until October 24th at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. It's on Kickstarter, plays 1 to 4 players in 30 to 45 minutes, largely a hand management game. If you've played the game Evolution, which I have, well, no, that's Evolution New World, which is a little bit different. If you've played the game Evolution, this will be very similar, but it's been tweaked a little bit and I think improved. And the reason I can say that, I haven't played the game physically, but I have played the app version, which is free to play apparently during the Kickstarter. Now, the reason I've played the app version is it was made available early so people could provide some feedback. And that was actually quite a while ago, but I really enjoyed it. And I think that the changes that were made tweak Evolution in a way that makes gameplay a little bit smoother and a little bit more interesting. Now, I liked the original game of Evolution. However, we've actually not played it in quite a while because I think, if I recall correctly, it was just a little bit difficult to manage. I think with the changes that are being made to Nature and with the artwork, I'm very interested in this one. So I'm definitely going to look a little more closely at it. I want to see a playthrough before I really come to a decision. The retail edition on Kickstarter is $39, plus there are 3 additional pledge levels. I made a note here. The most expensive pledge level is $184, but that does include the digital version. So you can back it at just a digital level, which I think is pretty cool. Shipping to the US, which of course would not apply to the digital version, is $14. And that's true whether you get like the deluxe or the retail edition. So the quote here is North Star. Oh, I didn't mention the modules. There's going to be a bunch of modules, so this mentions it here. North Star will support the nature game system for the next decade with 1 to 2 modules a year. The climate module and the disease module are slated for release in 2026. After the release of Climate and Disease, the Nature game system will have 71 unique configurations to explore. Each new module added to the system will generate an exponentially increasing number of combinations. So if I recall correctly, I think 5 modules come in the base game, but you'll have to look on the Kickstarter page to make sure of that. Anyway, that's Nature by the same designer as the original Evolution. The last 2 I'm definitely going to go through quick because they almost didn't make it on here. I'll tell you why each one's on here. This one that I'm about to mention for sure is borderline, maybe not channel relevant. It's got cute anthropomorphic animals, and that is Emberleaf. This closes October 10th at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. It's on Kickstarter, plays 1 to 5 players in 90 to 120 minutes. It's a tile placement, set collection, engine building game with variable player powers. The reason it's on here is it was designed by and has art by James Tomlin and Frank West. Remember I mentioned we would hear his name again. This is the guy who designed Isle of Cats. And so that's why I put it on here. It's cute. The theme is channel adjacent because I'm just saying that because the anthropomorphic animals. I don't know how you all feel about that as far as nature theme, but here's the quote about it. As a brave Emberling, your mission is to rebuild your home in the heart of an ancient forest. To succeed, you'll explore the wilderness, gather resources, clear dangerous areas, and construct new homes for your kin. Along the way, you'll recruit heroes into your fellowship, each bringing unique skills that will help empower your team. But beware, space in the forest is limited and other Emberlings have their own plans. So anyway, like I said, that will close on October 10th at 1 o'clock Mountain. And that was Emberleaf. The last one I want to talk about as far as crowdfunding is concerned is Aspens. I waffled on including this. This is really just an abstract strategy game with a totally pasted on theme as far as I can tell. I've not watched a playthrough of it yet. But this closes October 13th at 11 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time. It's on Kickstarter. It's a 2-player game, 20 to 45 minutes. Like I said, it's abstract strategy. You're moving pieces on a board. So here's the quote. In Aspen, players compete to grow the largest forest on a shared board, having to balance how much they invest in building their engine to increase the odds of generating trees on future turns, with the pressure of needing to expand to claim territory and ultimately be crowned the winner. Aspen trees, I just want to say something about aspen trees. I live in northern Colorado in the foothills region, and aspen trees are native to the mountains. They are beautiful in the mountains. They spread by underground runners, because when you see a grove of aspens, and I think this is so cool, they are clones of each other, because they're basically, they've been called, like, they could be called all the same organism, because genetically they are the same, because they are connected by these underground runners. And that's how they spread, especially when they are unhappy about the situation. Our neighbors have aspens. I am not happy about that. They're supposed to remove them. They have not yet removed them. I do not want to see aspens popping up in our yard. My partner's mom, her neighbor has aspens in their yard, and if she didn't keep up with pulling all the seedlings well, not seedlings, I guess, what do you call them? The little clones that come up, she would have a forest in her backyard. It's so annoying. Aspens don't belong at low elevations. Okay, there's my soapbox, climbing down off of it. The board game Aspens does look fun. I say that with a caveat. I haven't watched a playthrough yet, but I'm intrigued. The standard edition is $39. The deluxe edition is $59. And I mention that because I'm actually quite disappointed at the pieces in the standard edition. They're little cones, I think. Cones and rectangles, maybe? They don't look like aspens. If I were going to get this, I would get the deluxe edition. I'm not going to back this on Kickstarter because I'm not paying $60 for an abstract strategy game with wooden pieces you're moving around. Shipping is $14, so that would actually be $73 total, right? So $59 for the deluxe edition. The deluxe edition has these really cool tree-like wooden pieces that you move around the board. But my opinion, maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe there's enough pieces to justify this, but from what I could tell, it seemed a little overpriced. It is on Kickstarter until October 13th. You should look into it and come to your own conclusion. I'm going to wait for this one to come to retail. So that's my decision on that, but that's Aspens. All right. On to pretty much our last topic. So if you just jumped to here, here we are with recent board game content. I struggled with what to call this section because it's not just videos. So I'm first going to start talking about a video on another channel, and then I want to talk about a blog. And I'll provide links to everything down in the description. There's going to be a ton of links. I will try to organize them in a way that makes things easy to find. They'll probably be in relative order of where they appear in this video. So the first video I want to talk about is a video on the channel called Board Games for One, and this is actually the video that had me discover that channel. And this is called All the Reasons You Should Play Board Games Solo. This is a great video. It's entertaining. It starts with a brief history of solo gaming, which I found incredibly interesting. But then it goes on to talk about a Board Game Geek podcast episode. Some of you who are solo gamers may know where I'm going to go with this. It was an interview with Alan Moon. Alan Moon, of course, is the designer of Ticket to Ride and all of the variations of Ticket to Ride. I love Ticket to Ride. It is one of my all-time favorite games, and that is not changing based on a flippant comment that he made in a podcast. Anyway, they were talking about board game pet peeves, which is fun, right? I actually haven't listened to the entire podcast yet, but I did go back and listen to this part of it. So a pet peeve for Alan Moon, and this is totally understandable, is when people ask him to make... Now, it actually wasn't clear. Okay, so there was two ways that his pet peeve could be taken. One is that a pet peeve is of him being asked to make solo modes for his board games. Totally understandable. I don't know that Ticket to Ride is necessarily... Like, I've never thought of playing it solo. So I don't know, and I can understand like him being annoyed at being pestered for that. Sure, that makes total sense. However, the way he said it was that his pet peeve in general was, quote, solo mode games. His response to what he says or thinks, I can't remember, when people talk about solo mode games is go get some friends. He says, and I'm not going to dispute this next statement, the beauty and the joy of games is getting to play with other people. I will say one beauty and joy of games is getting to play with other people. I love playing games with other people. It's a lot of fun. I also happen to love playing solo games. So anyway, going back to the video, he then goes on to talk about why do some people play board games solo, things like exploring different strategies or relaxing after a hectic day. He goes on, and then what types of people play solo board games, and this is a real short bit at the end. The meat of it is why do some people play board games solo. I will say I read some of the comments on that Board Game Geek podcast. In the comments, a couple stood out to me. One was, to me, a game is all about the joy of executing strategic thinking. I couldn't have said it better, which is why you're getting the quote. Because yes, I love it. I say solving puzzles, but that's not really what it is. Like a game like Darwin's Journey, for instance, has all these strategic possibilities, these ways that you can earn points, these decisions that you can make to get you towards the end and try and score the most points. And I love exploring those different strategies. And it's just fun thinking in that way. And so, yes, whoever said that, I meant to put their username here and I forgot. So I am so sorry. Another one, also, I don't have an attribution. So these are in the comments on Board Game Geek for this podcast. I will provide a link to that in the description. But one of the other comments was, I like what gaming does for my mental health and I enjoy to do it on my terms. Yes, that's one of the reasons I play solo games. I love playing solo games. I love just that nice quiet time, that escape, or the solving of the puzzles, or just the artwork sometimes is what draws me in, or the theme, or any number of reasons. But definitely it has a positive effect on my mental health. How I got into solo gaming. So my first solo game was actually Terraforming Mars, followed relatively quickly by Wingspan. But at that time I was too busy. Our apartment was too small. I was a grad student at the time, and I didn't play much solo. It didn't occur to me to make that a large part of the hobby. It's not like I disliked it. I enjoyed the times I played Terraforming Mars and Wingspan solo. Terraforming Mars is a long game, so maybe that's why I didn't play it so much solo. But for both of those, I played them solo because I wanted to play them more than my partner wanted to play them. He enjoyed both those games. In fact, Terraforming Mars is one of our favorite games to play, but the fact that it takes so long means it doesn't get to the table very often. So that would have been, I'm trying to think, that would have been early 2020, late 2019, sometime in 2019. I don't know. Anyway, didn't play solo games really at all until Ark Nova came along. I looked up the date. On October 2nd, 2022, I played Ark Nova solo for the first time, and that month of October, I played it 8 times solo that month. And even more than that the following month in November. And then in December of 2022, my solo gaming adventures really took off. I played Ark Nova, Obsession, Weather Machine, The Isle of Cats Explore and Draw, Cascadia, and Three Sisters. We go into winter break, right, in December. And then so that means I also got to play a lot in January. Plus, in January of 2023, I got COVID, so I was isolating in my room. And I also played, so in addition to the ones that I just listed for December, I played Railroad Inc., Dinosaur Island Raw and Right, Tiny Towns, Newton, Fleet the Dice Game, Welcome to the Moon, Sprawlopolis, Fantastic Factories, and Pandemic Hot Zone North America. A lot of those played when I had COVID. But that really got me into the habit of playing solo games, and it's been a part of my life ever since then. So that's been a good solid almost 3 years. Right? Because we're getting close to 2025. And as far as Alan Moon's comment of go get some friends, I want to say that for many of us, and certainly not all of us, solo gamers are not a monolithic community. We all play solo games for different reasons. For some people, it's the only gaming they're able to get in, or the only gaming maybe they want to get in, and that's totally fine. But I will say we are not without community. So some of you may know already that there is a very friendly and supportive and wonderful community on Board Game Geek that is the solo gaming community. I am part of the One Player Guild on Board Game Geek. And I looked up the number of members this morning, actually, before I started recording. So as of September 29th, 2024, there were 21,057 members of the One Player Guild. Now, of course, not all of them are going to be active in the guild, but a fair number of them are. So one way that I participate in the guild is through a list every month where people post solo games that they've played, pictures of them. They talk about what they liked about them, what they didn't like, or maybe just post their scores, or some of them narrate. Some of them have, especially the obsession players, have really great narration that goes with their games. But it's called Solitaire Game on Your Table. And so I looked up for August 2024, there were 654 entries spanning 425 different games. There were 128 different people who posted that month, 10 of them new. And as we get into November, December, January, the number of people who post a solitaire game on your table actually increases. And so that's one way that I participate. And I find great community in that solo gaming community. You get to know people in that list, right? There's people who I know I have similar taste in games with, and I look forward to their posts, and especially enjoy reading the obsession posts, and so and a bunch of others as well. It's just a fun community, and so solo gamers, we play solo games for all sorts of reasons, and we're certainly not lacking in community when we want to have community. There are plenty of solo resources on BGG, so I will list those below, provide links to them, but what I'll provide links to are the One Player Guild, Solitaire Games on Your Table monthly Geek List subscription thread, which will give you the link every month to each month's new thread for that. There are solo challenges, and then there's just the Solitaire resources page, which has a ton of resources about solo board gaming, so check that out. Okay, so that is all I wanted to say about that. The last thing I want to talk about before we just briefly wrap up with channel news is Jamey Stegmaier's blog over on the Stonemaier Games website. I love his blog. Now, it is geared primarily towards game designers and game publishers, so I don't read all of his entries, but every once in a while he pops up one where I'm like, that looks really interesting. Anyway, he did a survey that he sent out to 800 plus reviewers on the Stonemaier list of who they send board games to, called The Truth About Tabletop Game Reviewers. So there is this, I'm just going to flat out call it a myth, but because it's not grounded in evidence, that board game reviewers, content creators, that they are paid to give these positive reviews, therefore you can't trust them. And so Jamey Stegmaier had a feeling that that was not true, but had no evidence for it not being true. So there's no evidence of it being true. There's no evidence that it's not true. So he presented the results of a survey, like I said, that he sent out to 800 plus reviewers on the Stonemaier list to ask them about their practices and procedures. And he has a bunch of questions. I'll provide a link to it in the description. I totally encourage you to check it out. I will say I'm not yet on Stonemaier's list, so I didn't get this survey. I haven't signed up to be on their list yet since my channel isn't yet large enough to meet their threshold for sending review copies, which is to have at least 2,000 subscribers or videos that consistently get 500 plus views. I'll get there someday, I'm sure. But honestly, Stonemaier has not put out a ton of games that I would feature on this channel, right? They just wouldn't be relevant. There's two that I can think of, and that is Wingspan, which I already own and I will do someday, and possibly Apiary. I haven't looked into it enough to know how fantastical the space theme is, or how much of actual bee colony biology is incorporated into the game, so I honestly don't know. I do want to play it someday, though. Anyway, back to Jamey's blog. The take-home message, so again, I totally encourage you to check it out. He provides the results of the survey, but the take-home message was that this survey provides evidence against, and this is my words, not his, that this survey provides evidence against the conspiracy theory. I'm calling it a conspiracy theory. I know that's a hot take. That most content creators are getting paid for reviews. So I'll come back to this in a few minutes to talk about this. I also want to encourage you to check out the comments on this and actually any blog posts on Jamey's blog that you read, because he's really great about responding to those comments in a really thoughtful and fair manner, I think, and is not not averse to admitting when he was maybe wrong or maybe didn't say something quite the right way before. So I really respect him as far as his content creation for his blog. I love his YouTube channel. So there's that. And Stegmaier makes some pretty good games. Okay, but the next part of this, so we're still on Jamey Stegmaier's blog. So a little bit after that, I don't know how long, I didn't look at the dates, but he did another blog entry that was Publishers' Approach to Tabletop Reviews, and presents the results of a survey that he made available to board game publishers, and then he also sent some to people who had emails for, and he got back about 70 responses. And actually, I forgot to write it in my notes, but I think he had somewhere in the 300s for responses to the content creators. So first of all, he starts out with defining a review, and that's going to be very important because not everybody maybe has the same definition for this, and this may be important in the results that he got, but it was also small sample size-ish. I'll qualify that in a minute. But he defined a review as that which features a content creator's opinion of a product, in contrast to non-review content like a how to play video, an unboxing, or a playthrough. Now, I combine my playthroughs and reviews, but within the video, those two things are separate. So, and I do that because I think the playthrough can help you in coming to a decision if that's why you're watching the review, right? So he had some interesting results that don't entirely necessarily align with responses to the content creators survey. Although I say that with a caveat of it's hard to compare surveys, even though, so his one question he asked, for instance, the publishers, is how many times have you offered to pay money to a content creator in exchange for a review of your product? I'll get to the results in a minute, but that's a different question than, the one that he had for content creators, which was, I didn't put it in my notes, the exact quote, but have you been offered, or how often have you been offered money in exchange for a review or something along those lines? You can't honestly actually compare those two questions because a single publisher will be in contact with many reviewers, right? And many, and reviewers are in contact with many publishers, but it's just there's not a one-to-one relationship of publisher to reviewer. And so you can't actually adequately compare those two results. However, it doesn't make it invalid. What I will say is it gives you insight into practices within the board game industry. I will say that Jamey thinks that maybe the way that the survey was worded or presented, that maybe some of the publishers didn't read that question that I just said, and I'll say it again, entirely correctly. Like maybe they're not, they didn't read that word review carefully enough. So the question again is, how many times have you offered to pay money to a content creator in exchange for a review of your product? I have seen several interviews with publishers and, or not necessarily interviews, but just situations where they have commented on whether or not their company offers money for reviews. Now, reviews being where content creators are giving their opinion about something. And across the board, I have never run into a publisher. So I'm trying to think of maybe how many publishers I've heard from. I mean, it's less than a dozen. It's not a lot, but, where I've seen interviews or situations on YouTube or whatever, none of them. They're very adamant that that would be an ethical no-no, right? You can't give somebody money in exchange for them presenting their opinion because that's weird, right? I don't know. That's just wrong because then there's this perception that maybe they're giving you money for a positive review, and then it's not a review, it's an advertisement, right? And that's different than a review, which is somebody's honest opinion. And so, so now let's get to the results. So 57.1% said never. Now this was a sample size of 70, so that was an N equals 40 for said never. 28.6% said a few times, and that's N equals 20, and that seems like a really big number to me, especially when you go back to the content creators, and I didn't go back and put their numbers in here, but it was a minuscule number, 3 or 4% who had been offered money for a review. What I got from the content creators survey is that there was no evidence that there's money being exchanged for reviews. But anyway, however, in this publisher survey, 14.3% responded many times, and that's an N equals 10. That's a lot. Many times offered money for a review, and that's unethical. So here's my thoughts about these surveys and just the topic in general. First of all, thank you to Jamey for putting out these surveys. I think they're fantastic. Thank you for showing us the raw results and not, he did provide some interpretation as well, but he provides the raw results. So I like that. And he told us the sample size and everything, so we can come to our own conclusions. So I think that's great. The surveys are interesting. They do provide evidence against the conspiracy theory that most content creators are, so again, the conspiracy theory or the myth that content creators are getting paid for reviews and therefore can't be trusted to provide an honest opinion. I reject that, and I'll tell you why. But before I do, I say I want to talk about where does this idea that board game reviewers are paid for positive reviews come from. This makes a lot of sense and is totally understandable. And that is that most reviews, my sample is biased towards YouTube content creators. So I don't read a lot of blogs because I like listening to YouTube when I'm doing other stuff. Most of those reviews are indeed positive, though this doesn't mean that those positive reviews don't include some criticisms. They usually do, actually. They're usually not across the board 100%. Like for instance, when I gave my review of Harmonies, I love Harmonies. I think it's a really fun game. Card quality and board quality, leave something to be desired, right? And I'm going to tell you that. So definitely a lot of those positive reviews will still include some criticisms. People who are trying to say that reviewers can't be trusted seem to be especially critical of larger channels, although this could be because those channels have more subscribers and therefore more exposure, and so more people see their content. I will say that one person who comes under fire a lot is Rahdo for his extremely positive reviews. I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I do want to point out that some content creators are paid for some of their content. So for example, previews, which absolutely should be different than reviews and should not include somebody's personal opinion. Okay, that's a preview video. They're usually getting paid for those. Not always, but usually. How to play videos, that's a mixed bag. I don't get paid for mine. With one exception, I just got my first game. I'll talk about that in a minute under channel news. Anyway, how to play videos can be paid for. There's a whole channel, Rodney Smith's channel, How to Play, or Watch it played. That's how as far as I know, that's how he makes his living, right? Is how to play videos, and I assume he charges for those. And playthrough videos are sometimes paid content, not on my channel. I'm too small. I've gotten no money from publishers. You can be assured of that. But those are things that I think it's okay to pay money for because it takes a lot of time. How to play videos, the reason you don't see too many on my channel is they take forever to make. I make a thorough outline. If it's a game that's been out for a little while, I get on BGG and I look up to see questions people have asked about the rules, clarifications, and I try to include those in my videos. So I type up an entire outline, which is basically an outline of the rule book. And then I record the video. I have to have a bunch of B-roll. I try to always use my own images when I can. And then I have to edit it, and editing a how to play video, that's going to take pretty much a whole day for me. I'm not a super fast editor. So I think there's nothing wrong with people getting paid for that. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of your time. Playthrough videos, same thing. Those don't take as long to edit, but they do take a lot of time. And if it's not a game you were going to learn in the first place, well, that makes sense, right? Previews, I see those as kind of advertisement. I like them because they show me things, but I do always look at them as advertisements. Okay, so like I said, I've not been paid for any content. I did receive my first review copy of a game in exchange for making a how to play video. But again, I'll talk about more of that in the channel news. So my thoughts, like I said, it's a huge investment to make a YouTube video, right? There is going to be, because of this, inherently bias towards playing games that you enjoy or you think you're going to enjoy, because that's a huge time investment, especially for those of us for whom this is, very part-time. I have another job. I would love to be able to do this full-time. That would be a dream, right? But I'm not there. So definitely I have a bias towards, well, I play games that I have. So these are games that I've researched and paid money for, and, you know, they're games that I enjoy. There's a bias towards taking time to create content for games you enjoy. Some of the content that I've created have been for some of my favorite games. Darwin's Journey and Ark Nova are two of my favorites. Waypoints is another one of them. I've created 3 videos for Waypoints. So I don't think that's bad. It would be great to hear about games a reviewer didn't enjoy, but this would necessarily take time away from playing games they do enjoy, right? It's not a full-time job for most of us. Where you will hear some sort of maybe not as glowing reviews from me is when you hear these vlogs, when I'm talking about the games I played this, you know, for the month previously, especially when I'm talking about all of the channel relevant games, because I will talk about all of the channel relevant games that I played in that month, even if I didn't necessarily enjoy them. So that's, you know, that. But if I didn't enjoy them, probably not going to make a video about them. Sorry, but you get them in the vlog, and I always list the games in the timestamps so you can always see what games are there. And I've been recently trying to put pictures in the thumbnail of the games that I'm covering. Not all of them will always make it. It depends on how many there were for that month, but I do try to put those in there. Okay, so my philosophy for this channel is what I really wanted to talk about, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments below, so please chime in. I will never take money in exchange for a review. I just think that's wrong, right? Because if you're taking money in exchange for a review, now it's an advertisement. It's not a review. I would never do that. I will never do that. I will always tell you if a game was sent to me by the publisher. So I did that recently in the Canopy Evergreen video, which is the game that I got sent from by the publisher, which I'm so tickled about because, well, we'll talk about that in the channel news. If I don't tell you that a game was sent to me in a video, then you know that that's a game I bought with my own money or I got as a gift from somebody, like for Christmas or whatever. But it's my own game. I did not get it from a publisher. Your trust is important to me, and I would do nothing to violate that trust. I will always be honest in my reviews. I will always tell you all my thoughts. Now, sometimes I forget to mention stuff. It's usually positive stuff I forget to mention, but I do have a checklist that I work off of when I do my reviews. I don't script them because I learned right away when I started this channel that me just reading off a script is not great. I do have an outline every time. I've got an outline right now that I have with my, you know, so, but it's not a script. So put that back. You know, I do much better with an outline. Just reminds me of things I want to say, but then I know the details of what I want to say. See, what else did I want to say? I'm looking at my outline. So on top of I will always be honest in my reviews, my intention, and I hope to keep with this through the life of the channel, is to provide a playthrough with my reviews, because I feel like playthroughs give you more of a sense of what it's like to play the game, or the feeling that you might get from playing the game, or just seeing me play it might give you, well, I guess you don't see my face, but you know, hear my voice or whatever. That's going to give you sort of a bigger picture, and then hearing my thoughts at the end, you know, that gives you some context for those. And so, like I said, I do actually have a checklist that I work through. However, if there's ever been anything where you're like, I wish she would cover this in her reviews, if there's anything you want me to add to the checklist, let me know down in the comments, and I'm happy to do that. The reviews are for you, they're not for me. So if there's more that you would like me to include in my reviews, please let me know, and I will do that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And I would love for you to chime in. You know, what do you think? Oh, I was going to say Rahdo. Rahdo's big. He's one of the biggest board game YouTubers. He has other people working on his channel. So does Tom Vassell, right? They don't have to play the games they don't want to play. They can be extremely picky. There are lots of games that come out every year, and they've earned that right, to play the games that they want to spend their precious time on. There's a particular, I'm not going to name names, there's a particular reviewer on the Dice Tower that I know when they are sent a game to review, most of the time it's not going to be a game I like. I don't watch a lot of those reviews. You know, I know the reviewers that I have a lot in common with, and I tend to seek those reviewers out. Z Garcia is a good example. I love Z Garcia's reviews. Thinker Themer, I tend to like a lot of games that they like. The Brothers Murph, I tend to like a lot of games they like. But I don't like all of them. Just because a reviewer I likes a game, I still do more research before I'm going to buy that game. So tell me about your process. I'd love to hear it in the comments. Anyway, I've already talked on long enough. The last two things I want to say, I just wanted to give a shout out to a very small channel I discovered recently, which is Neurodivergent Board Gamer. I have a soft spot for other neurodivergent people, so wish her well. Her name is Megan. And right now, as of today, she only has 66 subscribers. So go check out her channel. I discovered her when looking for a how to play video for First Rat. She did a fabulous job. It was a good how to play video. And so she's done playthroughs. I haven't totally explored her channel, but she does playthroughs, how to play videos. She's done one top 10. She seemed a little bit nervous. I assume if she does another top 10, it's only going to get better, right? I'm sure if you look back to my first videos, they were a little bit cringy. I have not gone back to look at them. But you know, then I also had experience making teaching videos for my classes. So I'm used to making a fool of myself on video and talking to a camera in a room with nobody in it, which is really weird, right? So anyway, check her out, Neurodivergent Board Gamer. I'll put a link down in the description. And then we're going to wrap up with channel news. And so, like I said, I got my first review copy of a game. That was Canopy Evergreen. I was so tickled about it, especially I have not asked any publishers for review copies because I figure, well, let's get to my subscriber count. I have 356 subscribers, which I'm thrilled about. This is 42, an increase of 42 since last month's vlog. And I think that that's great. I started in February. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm a relatively niche channel in an already niche, you know, hobby, right? So I think 356 subscribers right now is great. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, because once I hit maybe 500, or maybe once my videos are getting like 400 or 500 views, then I might feel okay about reaching out to publishers, or at least getting on some sort of a list. And that would be great, because as an adjunct instructor, not rolling in the money. So, you know, I have disposable income, which is great. I'm doing better than a lot of people, but you know, definitely not making full-time faculty salary. Anyway, I love teaching, so I continue to do it. But I love doing this as well. And I would love to be able to review board games that I might not otherwise want to spend my money on because, you know, for whatever reason. So I did eventually spend my own money on Daybreak, but it's because it went on sale. This is one that I'm probably only going to play solo. It's a cooperative game. My partner and my son and my mom don't like to play cooperative games for the most part. I can convince them to play Horrified and Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters, but they're not going to enjoy something like that. They don't like Pandemic, which I'm really sad about because I love Pandemic. But anyway, it would just allow me to cover, you know, more games on the channel, which I think would be great. But if that doesn't happen, I'm sure I am not going to run out of games to cover. I'm still going to keep buying games. So that's that. So I'm just going to end with a great big thank you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that other people might enjoy this video, and so they will recommend it to people who might click on it, might enjoy it, might subscribe to the channel. Maybe you're one of those people. How'd you discover my channel? Put that in the comments. That would be great. So, and then make comments. It actually, I guess, helps the algorithm. I'm learning all about algorithms. It helps the algorithm when you make a comment, but that's not why I like the comments. The reason I like the comments is I love hearing from you, because when I put out a video, you know, I don't know how it's received by you guys. I don't know. What did you like? What did you not like? I love hearing about that. Even the things you didn't like. Be nice though. You know, I'd like hearing about that because it tells me what to do differently next time. So I love interacting with you in the comments. So please put your comments in. I think I've asked for that a lot throughout this video on different stuff. So I'm sure this video will get more than the usual amount. Plus it's way longer than I think any video I've done so far, other than a few playthroughs. So that's it. That's all I have for you. And I'm sure you're relieved that it is finally over. So, you know, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not subscribed, but otherwise I will see you in the next video. Bye.